On today's show, we continue our Houston Rockets NBA Draft Profile Series, taking a look at the towering inside presence coming out of Duke. Their big man, Khaman Maluach. We'll take a look at his strengths, his weaknesses, NBA player comps, projected draft range, possible fit in Houston, and more. It's all coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Thursdays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, where the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing, and then like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Just head on over to FanDuel.com to check it out. And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. And joining us now is your weekly co-host, NBA draft enthusiast, and diehard Houston Rockets fan, Madison Moore. You can track down on Twitter at MadmanLeaks. Here as we continue our Houston Rockets NBA draft profile series. Today, taking a look at the freshman out of Duke, the massive man in the middle, the defensive terror, Khaman Maluach. This dude is no joke on the defensive end. Madison, a huge part of Duke's run in the March Madness tournament. What's your read on him? Give us the elevator pitch.
Yeah, man. Maluach is like you said, a huge defensive presence, man. I mean, this is your prototypical drop big with vertical spacing. Great pick and slip picker for lob passes. This guy finishes.
Wait.
Lob threat.
There we go. Sorry.
There you go. But yes, great lob threat. This guy is also great in drop coverage. He actually, for his size, he's 7'2" with a 7'5" wingspan, and he's a big boy. And for his size, I thought he moved pretty well on the perimeter. Like, I thought he wouldn't be able to switch out at all in the perimeter, but he actually held his own in a lot of different scenarios. And his activity and defensive attention to detail when moving throughout sets was very impressive. I thought he didn't make many mistakes. He was always in the right place at the right time, and he didn't put up a ton of stocks as a shot blocker, but you can definitely feel his presence when he's on the floor. And then when he did block shots, he like threw them into the stands or like spiked them off the backboard. I mean, his wingspan was definitely a factor. I think he's a good athlete, but his wingspan like makes up for so much. It allows him to finish tremendously around the rim. And so I think for the Rockets specifically, drafting in this that 8 to 10 range is when you get the best drop big, best lob threat big in the draft. And so I think it's a very good sweet spot for the Rockets to kind of steal a very good player.
And look, we mentioned it on a recent episode here, but there is maybe some, I won't go so far as to call it concern, but just the idea that if the Rockets do happen to get priced out of the market on Steven Adams, if Khaman Maluach is there at pick 10, that would be a fantastic pickup for this Rockets team, possibly him or maybe a Derek Queen type, with them potentially looking more into the centers that are going to be available to them around pick 10. That was the last that, kind of I heard about what their draft intentions might be with this pick if they ultimately decide to keep it. We're going to, as we navigate this, we'll get into some comps a little bit later on for Maluach as well as kind of the projected range, because this might be a guy that might not be on the board when the Rockets are picking at 10, unfortunately. He might be the first big man that, comes off the table here in the draft. So let's start with the kind of the strengths, and obviously the defense is the thing that pops with him. He's going to be a defensive monster. Walk us through what you're seeing out of him defensively, Madison.
Like I said, his activity, I think he moves his feet well for his size. I think he plays straight up. He uses his length incredibly well to be disruptive and not just reaching on and hedging on screens. And I just think a guy that size, you want him to be able to read the floor. You want him to be able to, in the pick and roll, be able to contain the ball handler while still getting back to his man, his role man. And I think he does that in a tremendous job. He uses it, his wingspan allows him to kind of contest in those situations, the ball handler, while also
like kind of showing and recovering a little bit.
The showing and recovering, but with his wingspan, he's able to actually touch his defender while getting his hand in an area that can be disruptive and play that in between space at a very high level, which is, the bread and butter for these types of bigs in the league. And like I said, his ability to switch out in the perimeter. Now, I'm not saying that he's, some switch big, because I don't think he's that, right? But if he gets caught on the island, I trust him enough to, survive out there, right? And to move his feet well and to understand switches and how to get back to his man in a timely manner. And like I said, that length is the equalizer. He helps very well. He rotates very well. He moves in space very well. And so those are the types of things. That's what you're looking for. You got a simplified role for this guy. You just need him to understand what offenses are trying to do, what the coaching staff wants out of him as a defensive anchor. And you want to be able to employ that. And I think Maluach has a very high chance of doing all of those things. And it helps that he's in Duke's system, who's produced a lot of bigs of his archetype.
Dude, I mean, I feel like if you're a prospect coming out of Duke, you've got such a great shot at making it at the NBA level. Like Duke does not turn out like there's like a handful of like good collegiate programs. Like they just constantly be turning out like great prospect after great prospect. And look, sometimes it's stars, sometimes it's role players, but like, you're getting good stuff if you're coming out of the Duke program.
And I just want to add real quick, because I wanted to add this because I think it's very important. I mean, the dude just started playing basketball 5-6 years ago. You know what I mean? Like for him to have such a good understanding of where he needs to be defensively already, right? And to really add some touch to his game and to be able to finish at a high level. I think that's very impressive, and it speaks to his ability to get better, and which is one of the biggest qualities I look for in prospects.
And he's also one of the youngest players in the draft. He's turning 19 in September. So he's got so much runway, right? Only recently picked up the game, right? So there's that. And you talk about the finishing, 71% from the floor, which is absurd. Just basically finishes everything around the rim. And then 76% from the free throw line, which I mean, that's like for a big man, generally for a big man that isn't like a stretch big or whatever, you're looking at like anything north of 70 is like just gravy. Yeah. But I mean, does that maybe suggest like, some hidden shooting touch potentially there, where like you could envision maybe he stretches his game out beyond just being, a vertical floor space, a vertical big around the rim, where like you could envision maybe he adds a little bit of mid-range or maybe even stretching the game out to the 3-point line one day?
Man, we do this every year. We do this every year with the same prospects. We do this every year with this exact same archetype.
I don't want to hear it because Khalil Ware is looking pretty solid, okay? I don't want to hear it.
Khalil Ware, Lively, Walker Kessler. We do it every year. But yes, there is some upside there for him to become a shooter. I mean, and like you said, the free throws is a big indicator that a lot of people like to use. And I just think his mechanics are fluid. They're smooth. He took and hit a couple threes this year, didn't shoot it at a efficient clip, but he flashed the potential and he wasn't afraid to take them when he shot them. And so I think, and even he has some clips, before he got to Duke, of him taking some very aggressive mid-range shots. And I'm like, oh, he might have some skill there. You know what I mean? And so, yes, that is a possible avenue in his higher end outcomes, is that he adds a three-point shot. And then you have a dual lob threat, rim protector, and a guy who can space the floor, which is, so rare to find in this league. Those types of guys are like gold. And so just him having that, 10-20% chance of reaching that outcome of becoming a competent three-point shooter and spacer really just vaults him into another tier of prospect.
Coming up, we'll talk about some of the drawbacks with Maluach, as well as NBA player comps, potential fit with the Houston Rockets, and more. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by OLIPOP. Look, OLIPOP is a new kind of soda made for people who love the classic taste of soda, but want something that actually supports their health, with just 2 to 5 grams of sugar and 9 grams of prebiotic fiber in every can. OLIPOP is reimagining soda in a way that's better for your gut. Traditional sodas are loaded with sugar, like 39 grams in a regular Coke or 41 grams in an orange Fanta. OLIPOP flips that script with just a fraction of the sugar, no artificial sweeteners, and gut-friendly ingredients like OliSmart, a blend shown to support digestive and overall health. It's soda that tastes like the real thing, that actually does something good for your body. Look, I don't know about you, I am a soda fiend. I've been drinking soda my whole life, and I usually, even when I'm recording, I usually would have a Coke or a Dr. Pepper sitting right over here on my side table. Since discovering OLIPOP, I've like fully made the switch. I'm all about it now. The vintage cola flavor is my favorite. It's a great replacement for regular Coke. I go through them just as much as I do a regular Coke. The flavor is awesome, but knowing that it's actually doing good stuff for my body, that it's actually a healthy alternative to regular soda is fantastic. And the flavor is awesome. I seriously, and it's not the only one that I like. The crisp apple is great. I like the root beer flavor as well. My girlfriend's a big fan of the grape flavor. There's so many great flavors to choose from, and you can check it out too. Get yourself a free can of OLIPOP. Just buy any 2 cans in store and they'll reimburse you for 1. Head to drinkolipop.com/lockedonnba to claim your free can and find OLIPOP near you. That's drinkolipop.com/lockedonnba. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, Madison. So one of the main like knocks that I've seen on Maluach is, first off, he is still really raw. Like he's still new to the game, right? And still learning, still incredibly young. But the thing that I took away a little bit from watching some of at least him on the offensive side of the ball is, yes, when he gets the ball, he's great at finishing. Getting the ball is a problem sometimes with like the hands and like dropping some passes and bobbling some stuff. So, like, it's not like, and look, when you can find a big man with like, good hands that doesn't drop a pass or something, like that's another kind of rare feat. So it's like kind of pick and choose here. Cause eventually if you trying to like put these, 2K sliders to 99 in every category, then this guy would be a consensus like top 3 pick. And that's why he's not a top 3 pick, because there is still some drawbacks to his game. What are you seeing offensively out of him about just kind of some of the stuff outside of like things like the touch, the catching passes, that kind of stuff?
So I actually liked his touch. I mean, to me, he got, when he tries to dunk everything, and when he can't dunk, I thought he finished well around the rim, as the 70% showed. And also he had a pretty nice hook shot. Now, it isn't the prettiest hook shot, but I've seen him hit several hooks where they bounced around the rim 3-4 times. And if that's not touch, I don't know what is. You know what I mean? And so to me, I think he's raw, right? And so that touch just isn't as natural, but it's still there. And I wouldn't worry too much about it. Now, the bobbling pass and stuff is kind of worrying. You want your big to be able to catch the ball, but he catches every lob, right? So he catches all the lobs, which is one of the most important passes to catch. And I really thought the bobbling came in the rebounding, when he was in contested rebounding situations. That's where I thought it was the biggest issue, right? And so in those contested rebound situations, I see him get a little frantic with the ball and get to tapping it. It looked like volleyball out there. And like you said, there were some passes that just got away from him. And I really just think that's going to come with time. That is an issue, and that is something that may not get better. But I think there's hope that it gets better because he's so young in the game of basketball, right? And so that's what I'd say about it.
When looking at just like his numbers don't exactly jump off the page, right? Like, only 8.6 points per contest, 6.6 rebounds, 1.3 blocks, and only 20. Yeah. So how much of that do you put into, okay, he only played 20 minutes per game basically, versus like, is there maybe some, like, because obviously shot blocking isn't just about, are you long? Are you tall? Are you an athlete? It's about timing. It's about positioning. It's about understanding where you're supposed to be within the defense. How much of like the low block numbers are you looking at from just like, he just didn't play enough, versus like, maybe he's got the tools to be a great shot blocker, but hasn't quite found like the timing, the rhythm, all of that yet?
Well, I think his positioning is fine, so I wouldn't worry about him in the shot blocking sense. I don't know if he'll be this elite shot blocker, but he'll definitely be a shot alterer, and that's all you really need. And he'll get some stocks out of it. And so I think positioning is more important. His ability to move his feet is more important, and I think those things kind of shine through for Maluach. The other what was that other point you asked about?
Just the rebounding too, but that just
no,
from a
the
production
rebounding,
standpoint.
The rebound. So oh yes, the production standpoint, the 20 minutes a game, that was the thing. Okay, so yes. I think there may be some I'm tired issues, right? And that's why he only is getting 20 minutes a game. But the overall counting stats, I wouldn't worry too much about that. This is a play finisher, okay? He's not going to have a bunch of opportunities. No one's running plays for him. No one's asking him to do things, with the ball in his hands. And that is going to drive your counting stats down. You're not going to have the opportunity to be in the short roll and make plays. You're not going to have the opportunity to, create for others. And you're only playing 20 minutes a game, probably because you need to get your conditioning up, right? Which is another weakness, but it's very common for these types of bigs. But it's something that he can work on, and is definitely something that he will improve on over time. And so I wouldn't worry too much about the counting stats. I think he does. I think his role is kind of solidified. He's going to do it well. As far as the rebounding goes, I think this is the biggest issue, because to me, his biggest weakness is he's not physical enough on the defensive boards. He's often out of position. Guys,
is he a high point rebounder? Is he just like relying on the length?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he's a high point rebounder, and sometimes he goes over the back to try and get offensive rebounds. Or you can see him all the time, even in defensive rebound situations. He's often just trying to go over top of somebody's head, and that's not going to cut it in the NBA, especially as a young player. He needs to learn. Somebody needs to get in there and show him over and over again how to bang, because he has the physicals to do it, and he just is not fighting with his lower body to get positioning early. And I think that is really hurting him in the rebounding department. But it helps him because he's a high point rebounder. He actually does pretty well offensive rebounding.
Okay. First off, somebody just needs to lock him into a room with like film on Charles Barkley and just let him watch, 1,000 hours of the round mound or rebound, putting his butt into guys and actually doing the dirty work, boxing out.
I think LP, if he got in the gym with LP would school him like on the boards. Like LP will give him a lesson on how to, get positioning, and like how length doesn't matter if that's the funny. That's what's always so funny is like, there's so much stock that you can put into like these raw physical attributes, right? But sometimes it's almost like, that's why it's so rare when you find a prospect or a player that combines both, right? That has the raw physical, but also understands the true fundamentals of the game. Because then it's like, okay, well, how do you beat this guy? But then you have the guys like Alperen and Sengun, right? Who LP's not the best athlete or the longest or the guy who can jump the highest or anything. So he has to do that dirty work stuff. And then that stuff kind of shines through when he's matched up against somebody who does solely rely on their physical gifts, because sometimes that's not enough. Now, sometimes it is, right? Sometimes if you're a high point rebounder and you're just taller and longer than everybody else, then you'll catch yourself a fair number of boards. But so that is a potential drawback there for him, but not something. I want to go back to the motor thing that you mentioned though, the conditioning. Yeah, conditioning.
Are those the same thing to you, motor and conditioning, or do you like?
No.
Okay.
No, but they go hand in hand now, because in order to be a high motor player, you have to be well conditioned, right? And so I do think they go hand in hand. I think his motor's fine. I think he has a good motor. I think it can sometimes wane because he's tired, you know what I mean, and kind of look like he's not all the way into it. And if he's losing positioning, that's usually an effort deal. So I can see how that comes out on film. But when I watch it, I'm like, this guy's out of position. You know what I mean? He's like rotating from somewhere and he's not fighting. He's not understanding that he needs to fight and get position. But now that you say that, I mean, it could be just, a motor issue. But I thought when he was fresh, he was active and he was, in it. And those type of things I feel like are common for this player archetype. Like, so I'd have grace in that. I wouldn't put that as a death knell for a player. Like, they're not able to overcome those things.
Is there any weakness that we haven't highlighted yet that you want to spend a second talking about?
off the top. No, I think I got to pretty much my biggest weaknesses is for sure the positioning. He needs a better tank. You know what I mean? And I think those kind of encompass. But I think his biggest weaknesses are, of course, the shooting is kind of like that pseudo strength weakness thing because he's not really supposed to shoot, but he's kind of flashing to shoot, but it's actually a weakness if he's supposed to shoot, right? So so I think it's cool.
Got it. Okay. All right. Well, we'll get to our NBA player comps here in a second, potential fit with the Rockets, his projected draft range, all that good stuff here in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA Finals are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Which players are showing up in the biggest moments, and how could tracking their trends help you build your next big bet? Right now, you can head on over to FanDuel.com. Take a look at the odds-on favorites in this Pacers-Thunder series. Ahead of Game 4, off the Pacers' big-time Game 3 win, the Thunder are actually favored to win Game 4 on the road, minus 112 favorites in that game. Still the overall favorites to win this final series as well. OKC Thunder minus 235 to win the title this season. Although that line has been shrinking with each passing game. And at some point, maybe the Pacers will be favored in here. Look, I picked Pacers in 7, and I'm sticking with that prediction. But for all those odds and so much more, you can head on over to FanDuel.com. Take a look at all the odds available. Check out the Parlay Builder. Have some fun with it. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, Madison, my favorite part of these draft profile pods, your NBA player comps for Khaman Maluach, and the way we do this, right? So low-end comp, median outcome comps, and then the possible high-end outcomes. Now, I will say, there's a comp that I'm hoping I'm going to hear you go with, and I'm going to give you endless amounts of grief if I don't hear this as a comp. But I'm not telling. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you who it is. So,
is it that
Lob threat?
All right.
Is it the original?
Oh my God. Okay, that was not one of them. If it is, my God. Okay. All right. Anyways, hit us with your low end comps. Let's see what you got.
Okay, so the lowest one I got is Neemias Queta. I think this is a good one, a extremely large prospect. I mean, center, played for the Boston Celtics, I believe, and he never really just caught fire, but extremely huge. But he never could put it all together. He was a big body out there. He got plenty of chances, but that's when your processing just doesn't catch up to your size, and then your physical limitations kind of shine out. So I think that is the biggest fear for Maluach.
Okay.
Another guy, serviceable, and who kind of invented the lob watch quote. My guy Bruno Fernando. Yes. Rockets fan, I always got one for you guys.
It's so bad because Bruno's not even a real lob threat is the problem. Like he was like a pseudo lob threat. He was the closest thing they had to a lob threat. Like that's a
lob threat.
God,
I'm sorry. Look. Now this isn't the best cop, okay? But we always give an ode because the role will be similar, okay? This is if you do things at a good level in spurts, right? And you can take spot minutes at the Bruno Fernando. And the last one,
I can't wait for the Rockets to draft Khaman Maluach and start him over Alperen Sengun next year. It's going to be fantastic.
Please.
Okay, I'm sorry, I had to get that one off my chest. All right, what last one? What you got?
All right, and the last one is more in line. This is more in line with I think what type of prospect he'll be. The last low end I have is Walker Kessler. Okay, so I think Walker Kessler, another prospect who flashed some shooting but never really got there. Had some good moments and also some not so good moments. And consistency remains his biggest issue to getting on the floor, right? And so that will I think be similar to Maluach, right? Next is our median. In our median outcomes, we're going to start with the great Clint Capella. You know, I got some Rockets for you. All right, so Clint Capella, I think if he gets, I think they're similar in
a bigger Clint Capella is the thing.
Yeah,
so.
Well, yes, he is,
because Clint was kind of undersized. That's the thing, is like people forget Clint was good at what he did, but he was also only 6'10".
Okay, yeah. I thought he was 6'11", but okay, 6'10". Okay, but I think I really honed in on that because I think they're raw in the same aspects in a lot of ways. With their offensive ability, they're just play finishers, right? But they're really going to hang their hat defensively, and they both and Clint also came in with a low tank. Right. And so it was a guy who had a low tank. We didn't say his motor was bad, but you know, there were some issues with staying on the floor. And I think that's similar to Maluach, right? He's not going to be as quick and as rangy, and is not going to run the floor as well, but still will do a lot of those things, right? And so I like Clint in those aspects. Another guy that I really like, and I think this is if, you know, he becomes a really good, consistent player, is Luke Cornett. I really like the Luke Cornett comp, the Boston big that comes in and really just makes an impact on the game. And this is if Maluach really starts to develop his touch. He really starts to become an impact player and a finisher, and he starts to use his size in an imposing way on defenses, and is still able to provide some defensive, you know, some defensive power, because that's all the things that Cornett does. It really become an impact player in short minutes, in short spurts, and I think that is what he has the ability to do.
I just want you to know that with that comp, you lost every single Rockets fan listening to that. It's like they're like, we're not taking Luke Cornett with the 10th overall pick. I want you to know that I understand what you're going for. He is a good player. He's serviceable, but I just want you to know, for a median outcome, you just killed a lot of Rockets fans' hopes and dreams.
Okay, how about this one? I got one more median.
Okay.
Robert Williams is that. I think that is what the team would be going for. You know, played with Ime Udoka, another guy Ime Udoka likes to do double bigs with. So I think they are similar. They're going to have simplified roles, and this is the same archetypes of player. And I think if the Rockets get that as a median outcome, I think they'll be happy with it. I think if they got Clint or Mark Williams as a median too. Right. I think Luke Cornett is a good player. You just need to watch a little bit more basketball.
I think he is too. I'm just saying, like
with the 10th pick.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like that's what I'm saying is you lost all of them without. All right. So let's get the high end outcomes. What you got?
All right. So the first high end outcome I'll say is Rudy Gobert. He's not quite as long as Rudy, but I think they have similar offensive limitations. Like if the touch never comes around, right? But they have the ability to be so impactful as a drop bigs in the lane. I don't think he'll block as many shots, but he may disrupt just as many, right? And he may actually come around to actually blocking a lot more shots. And so I think Rudy Gobert is another one. And they, to me, move a little similar. They're kind of robotic in their movements, where it doesn't always look pretty, but it's effective. You know what I mean? And that was the big difference for me with Maluach. He moves in a particular way that can sometimes look unorthodox, or kind of like how Garuba used to do things, right? It's just like that looks a little weird. A little funky, Did he travel? You know what I mean? Like, it's like those types of ways. But are often effective, can be very effective anyway, right? Another one is Brook Lopez. I think Brook Lopez, in the way Brook Lopez can affect the game by not just blocking shots, but also being positioned. And this is if the three-point shot really comes around. Like, Maluach begins to really develop and foster that three-point shot, and it really starts to knock down. I think Brook Lopez is another guy that fits him well. And I don't know if I got to your comp yet, but I only have one high-end comp left. I only have one, and I don't think it's going to be it. I have the late, great Dikembe Mutombo.
Yes, he got it. I was hoping you were gonna go with Deke. Like, I was looking at this guy and I was like, he's 7'2". He's a drop big. He projects to be able to be like this elite rim deterrent. Yep. Like, how does this guy not scream Dikembe Mutombo? Now, granted, Deke couldn't shoot worth a lick. Like, but he can shoot free throws. He can shoot free throws. All right, so for sure, I'll give you that. But man, I'm glad I'm glad we're on the same page mentally on that one. That's nice.
No, and they both have that kind of unorthodox movement thing going, like that I was saying. It's not always this fluid, but it's super effective. Like, you know what I mean? They still get to where they need to get to very effectively. And I think Deke, when I watched him play, when I actually watched the film, when he finished the ball, when he moved, I thought he looked a lot like Deke out there. And so I think that'll be the highest end. If he really just becomes everything, all his potential defensively, he's going to look more like Dikembe Mutombo out there. And the Rockets would love to have another great center in the rotation. And we know how much MA loves the double bigs. And so I definitely think he'll find a way to get him on the floor. And as you said, we need some insurance for Steven Adams.
And so, first off, if they could get Dikembe Mutombo with a 3-ball, my goodness, like just sign me up immediately. No, but look, I think that's a really great place to kind of start the conversation about potential fit with the Rockets, because the double big, the way the Rockets run it, works very specifically because of Steven Adams' unique skill set as like one of the greatest, if not maybe the greatest offensive rebounder of all time. And I think that. How much does that dynamic change if you throw in a big like Maluach alongside Sengun? Now, Sengun is smart. He's high IQ. He can do, he can play off of other guys. He can create and still get to his spot. But like, what do you think that changes? Like, does a Maluach Sengun front court work in your eyes?
Not right now. Not right now, but it's something I think that can be developed to work. And like we said, Ime Udoka loves these double bigs, and not just with Steven Adams and Alperen Sengun. He ran them out there with Robert Williams and Al Horford, right? And so he continuously...
Yeah, but Horford can space the floor, and that's the difference between that one.
Yeah, a bit, but he's not taking 4 or 5 threes a game. He's shooting 2 or 3. You know what I mean? So, I mean, he can...
I'm pulling the receipts on you right now. Hang on. You can vamp for a second. Hang on. You can carry the show for a second. All right. Hold up. Al Horford this past year.
No, with Robert Williams.
What do you mean? Oh, with Robert Williams. Okay, so a couple years. Okay, well, dude, I'm just read through the last handful of seasons. 5.2, 4.0, 5.2, 3.8, 5.4, 4.2. Like, all right. He's taking 4 to 5 threes a game.
Corrected.
Like, okay, that's all I was saying. Is like, and he's shooting them at a really good clip. Like, he's a career 38% 3-point shooter.
Yeah, no, he's shooting them things. But yeah, that just means come on, Alp. When you gonna start shooting them at 38? I
was gonna say this is like, if Alp had a 3-ball, this would be a great conversation, because there you go.
Come on, Alp now. But yeah.
I saw that hit with that video of him working out with his Turkish trainer, and he was draining those threes. So I'm all aboard the hype train. If Alp can come back next season and regain the touch, this is not even an Alp pod, but actually, like, no, let me calm myself down for a second. But from a legitimate standpoint, right, thinking about the potential fit with a big like Maluach, things get a lot easier from a fit perspective if Sengun has the floor spacing in his game suddenly, right? Because like if a defense has to play him honestly at the 3-point line, then you could space Sengun in the corner, you could have him up at the top, you can have him in the slot, whatever. And Maluach can be your primary screener, and then that's where all the action happens, right? And then Sengun gets to not take plays off, but the offensive spacing doesn't get mucked up by having 2 non-shooting bigs out there.
Yeah, man, and imagine Maluach in Amin Thompson's backline role, like as just a lob catcher, not even as the initial screener. Like there's a lot
just playing out of the dunker spot.
Yeah, just playing out of the dunker spot. I mean, Alp's gonna find him all day. Can you imagine that vertical spacing with Alp coming down the lane? Like, you know what I mean? That's
Alp coming out of the short roll, and then bam, you like defender either has to rotate over and stop Alp, and he gets a free line to the basket, or if the defense rotates, then Alp makes that lob over the top, and Maluach just 71% from the floor. Let's go. Where is it?
Lob threat.
There it is.
Exactly. Look, we know Ime Udoka got it schemed up, man. It's the blueprint is there, and so I definitely think the issue to me isn't going to be too much offensively. It's, are you going to be able to dominate teams physically when he's on the court? And right now, I just think he has some issues with positioning right now. And once he gets in the league with them dogs, them vets, right? But I think he's the type of player that in a year or two, Ime Udoka can coach up, and he'll do everything that Ime Udoka teaches him to do. And I think he's a quick learner. I think he's learned how to do some of the harder things, moving in space quicker than he's learned, how to be physical, which people, either you got it or you're not. But I think it's just a learning curve. And I think this coaching staff will definitely bring that side out of him, and he could be a super impact player in a year or two.
If the Rockets are unable to bring Steven Adams back next season, do you think he'd at least be serviceable for like 10 to 12 minutes a night, tops, in a very situational role as a backup big?
Of course, I think as a backup big, right? It's just I was talking about as far as double big,
for sure.
I was afraid of that, but as a backup big, yes, of course. I hope that would be the hope, is that he could play 10 to 15 minutes a night, get Alperen some rest, and you could put him out there with Jabari Smith Jr. and you have a real legitimate screener in Maluach and roll man, and then Jabari on the wings. And so I think it fits perfectly fine. I think that's what the Rockets should. I honestly think this is a serious candidate at 10. This is probably one of the most serious candidates, just because we know what Ime Udoka values, right? And this is an archetype of young player that we have not drafted yet. We've almost drafted every archetype of young player on this team except a center. And I think at 10, at this sweet spot, he's the best at this position here. He's coming from Duke, and he's already pretty advanced as a mover and processor on the back line of reading defenses.
Well, and to your point, I know you said a center, right? Technically, Alperen center, but it's the type of center, right? Just because this we were looking at this last year, right? Is we were looking at the types of players that the Rockets had drafted, and that's why there was so much discourse between the idea of taking Reed Shepherd versus Donovan Clingan, right? Is because the Rockets hadn't drafted either of those types of kind of type of player, or the archetype of player, archetype. I'm stupid. I'm just repeating myself at this point. But I think you're right? It would be like the final piece of the puzzle for the Rockets to gain one more archetype that they don't have in the mix yet. We know that Ime really values the defensive side of the ball, and with what we know about the Rockets potentially being worried about getting priced out of the Steven Adams market this offseason in his free agency approach, Maluach would be a really big pickup for them at 10. It certainly feels like it. Now, the concern here becomes looking at his potential draft range, right? And this is a guy that, he's been in some mocks where he's all the way up at 6, 7, 8. He goes kind of early in certain mocks. And the one that I keep coming away with thinking, man, it's going to be really hard. And this is the team that I see him mocked to constantly, is the Toronto Raptors.
Yep.
I see and it sucks because they're right there ahead of the Rockets, and it's like, man, I'm gonna be mad if they snag him one pick before Houston, especially if there's heavy reporting that really suggests, which again, from what I've heard so far, Rockets are pretty interested in either Maluach or potentially Derek Queen with that 10th overall pick. But that would suck to lose him to the Raptors one pick before you're on the board. Yeah,
man, it really would suck, and I think he really is a Masai guy. These are the type of players he play. He's not afraid of going and getting a center in the lottery. You know what I mean? So I really think Toronto is a serious candidate to draft him. And the Rockets, I think there's options though if he does go off the board. But I do think this archetype would be perfect to add to this young mix of player. This is a guy who he doesn't have to play immediately, but his role is simplified. It'd be easy to get him on the floor, and he's going to be focused in on defense, which we know Ime Udoka's primary focus.
Last thing I'm gonna get you with, do you like him enough that you would trade up for him? No, not that much. Okay. All right. I was looking maybe a trade, and not a trade up to but maybe get up there at 8 or 7, leapfrog the team you think is going to snatch him up. Right. And then,
if it only costed a couple seconds, who cares? You can throw some seconds away to leap two spots, but I doubt, I bet it costs a little more than that. Probably, unfortunately. Yeah.
But all right, we want your thoughts on Khaman Maluach. Would you like to see the Houston Rockets take a swing with him at pick number 10? What are your thoughts on him as a prospect and also as a
lob threat?
Give us your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Madison, the drill. Let me know where to track you down at.
You can find me on Twitter at MadmanLeaks. Come talk Rockets basketball and NBA draft.
That's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Rockets. As always, thanks so much for checking out the show. Remember, the best way to help us grow the show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing, and then like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.